In 2021, Saudi Arabia had no football culture worth speaking of. No global stars, no international attention, no reason for anyone outside the Middle East to care. 3 years later, they had spent $51 billion on sport. And football would never be the same again. Welcome to the Financial Foul. Let's start with the moment everything changed. January 2023. Cristiano Ronaldo, the most famous footballer on the planet, signed for Al Nassr. The contract was worth $200 million. The reaction was universal. This was a retirement home for a fading legend, a vanity project, a waste of money. They were wrong. Within 48 hours of the announcement, Al Nassr gained more Instagram followers than in the previous 5 years combined. International media coverage of Saudi Arabia reached levels no advertising campaign had ever achieved. Ronaldo didn't just sign a contract. He handed Saudi Arabia something worth far more than $200 million. He handed them the world's attention. But Ronaldo was just the beginning. Karim Benzema, Neymar, Kanté, Mahrez, Ruben Neves, Roberto Firmino. The list of players who followed reads like a Champions League All-Star team from 2019. Combined transfer fees and wages, billions of dollars, spent in the space of a single transfer window. The football world called it reckless, wasteful, unsustainable. But here's what they missed. Saudi Arabia wasn't building a football league. They were building a brand. The project is called Vision 2030. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's plan to transform Saudi Arabia from an oil-dependent economy into a global hub for tourism, entertainment, and business. Football was one line item in that plan. An enormously expensive, enormously visible line item. The logic was simple. Sport generates attention. Attention generates tourism. Tourism generates revenue. Revenue reduces dependence on oil. One Ronaldo signing generated more international media coverage of Saudi Arabia than decades of traditional advertising could have bought. That is not sport. That is a marketing budget with a press conference. Now let's talk about the real numbers. $51 billion. That is what Saudi Arabia has spent across sports since 2016. Not just football. Golf, the live tour that shook the entire sport to its foundations. Boxing, wrestling, Formula One, esports. Every major sport on earth now has a Saudi footprint. The Saudi Pro League spent nearly $1 billion on the 23 summer transfer window alone, second only to the Premier League. The league currently operates at massive losses, and nobody cares. Because profit was never the point. Here's the play that most analysts missed. Saudi Arabia is hosting the 2034 World Cup. The infrastructure investment that follows, hotels, stadiums, transport networks, technology, is worth hundreds of billions. The contracts for that infrastructure flow to companies with relationships already established in the country. Football opened those doors. Every star player who signed for a Saudi club brought camera crews, journalists, and broadcasters into the country. Every major event hosted in Saudi Arabia brought business executives, government officials, and investors. The football wasn't the product. The football was the invitation. There is a word for this strategy: sportwashing. Using sport to improve a country's international reputation while deflecting attention from political controversy. Saudi Arabia is not the first. Qatar hosted the 2022 World Cup. Abu Dhabi owns Manchester City. Russia hosted in 2018. But Saudi Arabia is doing it at a scale and speed nobody has attempted before. So has it worked? The numbers say yes. Tourism to Saudi Arabia has increased dramatically since 2021. International business investment is up. The country's global brand recognition among under 35s has transformed. The Saudi Pro League is still losing money. Some of the big-name signings have been disappointing on the pitch. The football, by European standards, is not world-class. But that was never the measure of success. The measure of success was, does the world pay attention to Saudi Arabia now? The answer is yes. $51 billion well spent. Football didn't change Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia changed football. And the game will never look the same again. Subscribe to The Financial Foul. New videos every week, following the money behind the beautiful game.